I'm probably the last person that should be up here talking about peace. I once heard it said that I reminded someone of a duck, nice and calm on the top of the water, but internally I'm like the feet of a duck, rapidly treading water underneath. I've struggled with the worldly concept of peace and struggled with grasping and accepting it for much of my life. What I didn't understand was that, like so many concepts, God has a different definition of what peace is versus the world's definition. Did you know that peace is mentioned over 400 times in the Bible? That must mean that it's pretty important to God. The word for peace in the Hebrew language is shalom. It means something different than what we think of about today and as far as peace is concerned. A lot of time we associate peace with a lack of conflict or turmoil. But shalom actually means wholeness, in harmony, tranquil, and being complete even during conflict or turmoil. How is this possible, and where does this type of peace come from? It comes from a reconciliation with God, and out of that reconciliation with God, we can be whole internally and with others within the world. It is easy to get caught up in the non-peaceful world around us or get caught up in the thoughts that swirl within us. These non-peaceful thoughts that we have within us and how we respond to the non-peaceful world around us can be changed by this act of reconciliation that I mentioned. However, this kind of peace came at a cost. That cost was God giving me and you the most valuable thing possible so that we may have that kind of peace. Isaiah 53, 4-5. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. What a raw description of the price that was paid for us to have peace. As we prepare for the upcoming week in the Advent season, I pray that every one of us remembers who we celebrate and what he brought us as a gift. Remember that there are two portions of the transaction of a gift. For the full transaction to take place, both components are required. There's the offering of the gift, and then there's the receiving of the gift. I pray that we will accept the gift of peace that God has given us freely, but at great cost. That the reconciliation will happen with us and God, so that we may become whole internally and with others. Like I mentioned, my engaging or accepting the gift of peace has not always been easy. I struggle to accept it, like when someone gives me an extravagant gift on Christmas morning that's way out of the price range that I was expecting or even felt worthy of. And the thought that he wants to give me that gift, not one day of the year, but continually, doesn't always resonate with me. After the struggles and the turmoil that I've seen in my life, it's also hard for me to comprehend why he would give me that gift in the first place. However, I can tell you that it is real, it is fulfilling, and it has helped me get through some of the hardest moments of my life. For some, peace is an easy gift to receive. Others, like myself, are still comprehending it. But either way, God is stretching out his arms to hand it to us. Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Remember this holiday season that the season is about the birth of the Prince of Peace, the only one who can offer the type of reconciliation required for us to experience true shalom, a true and lasting peace that defies all understanding. If you accepted this gift of peace, what would that look like in your life? What would that look like in your home or your marriage, your parenting? What would that look like in your community or maybe your workplace or even at school? What would that look like in your church? And what would that look like in the world and the chaos that sometimes surrounds us? So I've been able to walk through you the devotional that has been put together for peace. However, I would be neglect if I didn't share with you what peace looked like in my life and how it's taken over over the years and how I've engaged it. 15 years ago, I was in a place where it was pretty dark and I didn't have peace. My life was overran by depression and anxiety, and there was a lack of peace. That lack of peace brought on a lack of hope. It brought on a lack of love, and it brought on chipping away at my faith. During that period of time, that was a time where lack of peace in my life brought me to a point where I had a point in my life where I almost didn't come home to my family. I almost didn't come home to my friends. And there was a time there where I didn't have that peace that I know. I had a hard time accepting that peace that God had for me. And it was a dark, dark point. And I know over the years I've met a lot of people who have been in similar situations. And I can tell you, after being blessed with the last 15 years, that the peace that I speak of is real. And that God offers it freely for those who just accept it. And that doesn't mean that there aren't hard days. It doesn't mean that there's not turmoil, that there's not conflict. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges in life, whether it be in marriage or parenting or at work. But it does mean that God is there, and He wants to complete that relationship with you. And that I know for sure.